Welcome back, everyone. So I have a few pens in front of you, and I thought I would do at least some of the next few videos, maybe interspersed or a couple in a row, based on the theme. And the theme is actually going to help me try to get through some of the pens that I've allowed to accumulate and back up. But for some reason, I've acquired a few pens that are hooded or semi-hooded, kind of variations on the Parker 51. And of these pens that I kind of have, this one you might know as a taperite, but these are a little bit lesser known varieties. I mean, this is a Moore pen, so we know the name, but I mean, this is like a later kind of cheaper, last throws of the brand kind of a pen. And we have, I'm gonna have to look up the name again, but this is a Soviet Union era pen. And this is a Wyvern, a British pen. And they all have variations of the hood that I thought I might just show off, and we can do a little comparison. And let me just kind of go through, just show them off real quick, and I'll pick one that we'll start this video with, and then over time, I think I want to end up with the taperite. So I know that'll probably be my last one, because I think of the hooded, semi-hooded things that kind of came out with the Parker 51 or around that time to compete, I think this one doesn't get as much love as it should. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I should actually throw in a Fifth Avenue, which I should throw one of those in too, but I'm not going to grab it, so do count on that. So let me go ahead and start with this side. This is a Wyvern. This is a British made pen, I do believe, and I'll show it here real quick. And maybe you can see it's got a lovely little dragon imprint, which is really kind of cool. But just to kind of zoom out and show the hood that we're working with, and I'll show this in more detail later, we're working with this guy. And it essentially does feel like they said, okay, we've got these pen parts. How do we compete? Let's throw on a hood. And so you've got this weird mismatched little thing that is this hooded Wyvern. So this is the one I think we'll start with, just because I really like the red. I want to see it shine up. Here is the Soviet Union pen, and I'll get the model number and name. But I saw this on some other pen video. I think it was Wasky Squirrel had one, and he likes to collect odd European pens, or it's odd to us, not to them. And so I liked what he had, so I was like, I'm going to grab one of those. And this actually has a cool mechanism that we can get into as well, which will suit my goal of this channel. So we'll have 2 for 1 in this guy. But let me just show you this guy with a wickedly long nib, so essentially feeling like it's a semi-hooded guy, but that nib really sticks out. You can see it. So that one will be a fun one to do. And here's this lowly little Moore. It's rather nondescript, and the only way you know it's a Moore pen is that it says it on the clip here. So nothing, very boring overall. Probably like stick in your shirt, have a work pen, get beat up, no one's gonna care. But this is a, yeah, it's pull off as well. And this one, I think I'm cheating a little bit, because I've seen this a few times around the time of the Parker 51. They kind of do this domed section that kind of is like, okay, it's trying to be a hood, but not really, because all they really do is take a nib, make it small. It's not the tubular nib of a Parker 51. They stick it on a feed and stick it in there, so it kind of has hood-esqueness to it. And I think I have a Waterman that does this as well, and you see this around a lot. So a lot of the cheaper pens, at least in the US, I don't know about European pens, but this is something that I'm going to throw in here just because I want to. And I think I'm going to do a little bit more, because this is a brass cap. It's well beat up. What else do we have? Is this no, it's not a lever filler. That I might actually see if I can do some gold plating over this brass to really make this kind of sad pen that anybody else would throw away or toss to the side. Make it a little more fancy to see if, you know, entice me to want to use this more of a daily writer, and we'll see how it goes. And then of course we have the taperite. The taperite has a lot of little variations to it, so this particular one is the hooded variety, and of course we'd probably call this one semi-hooded as well, because look how much that sticks out. Actually allows these pens to have a little bit more ability, or some ability, because Parker 51s do not. These can actually have some softness and some flexibility and line variation associated with them. So again, I have a soft spot for the Taperite, the Fifth Avenue, some of those Parker adjacent hooded pens at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and show these guys at the end and hopefully get you guys to like it kind of like I do. So let's go ahead and stick this to the side, and oop, not all of them. Keep this one. I'm going to do the Wyvern first. So just kind of zooming in, I'll do the quick take apart. I just want to show it around real quick. So it kind of has this nice kind of pearled, marbled, red and black, a little bit of silver tones in there. And we have, it's a lever filler. And just kind of running my hands along it, it looks like there's a little bit of rippling, like the celluloid has kind of shrunk and changed a little bit over time. It might not be easy to see with the eye. Maybe you see that, yeah, that's kind of extreme little dip, but there's little points where it kind of wavers a little bit. Not enough to make it like a bad pen by any means, but not one that, like, I don't know. I come with this for my collection, and I'm not opposed to having these kind of like imperfect pens. So to get this guy apart, looks like we have a little cap jewel up top, and I'm going to do my best to kind of heat and see if I can unscrew the cap jewel. I believe that's probably what will happen, but I'm not going to struggle on camera, so hopefully that'll come off. If not, polish around it. I'll protect my little slim cap band here, and this guy looks like he has a nice intact cap lip. And we have the hood here, which I kind of joked earlier and said they just like slapped a hood on, but they didn't exactly. They actually had to think a little bit about it, because this is a screw-on section. So there is a little bit of manufacturing. They didn't just like throw on a hood and say, call it a day. There we go. And this has still slightly supple kind of green latex sack on it. Apparently somebody's revived it in the past, but it's got a little constriction down here. But in the sake of full like repair, I'm gonna not rely on this and take this apart. And actually I have a critique about that, which we'll see how it goes when I put it back together. But other than that, we have our usual barrel, and feels like maybe there's a J-bar or some other kind of springy mechanism, which I'll take a look in there off camera. If it's something I can pull out, it's like, okay, check it out, like a J-bar, to see if it's in good repair. I'll pull it out. If it's more of an integral unit, I'll leave it in, and it feels pretty good. It's working well, so we'll see. And at the bottom here, oh, some sack. It looks like there's a lip here, so I'm not sure if that is, it's probably part of the barrel. I'm trying to feel if there's a seam. But yeah, I don't think that's an additional jewel. I just think it was milled to have a little step down and a dome. Yeah, I don't have a seam that my fingernail can get in, so there we go. So I guess the question would be, how do you get some of these hooded things out? You can't really just zoom back out. If you put it on a block, I mean, you're gonna put the block imprint right into that. So how do you go about doing it? And that's going to be the trouble for some of these, honestly. And so I'm going to see if I can take my knockout rods, what you're ultimately going to have to do is probably just kind of slowly pound these out. And I'm going to take my time and not do it on camera, because I don't want to have a bad angle and break any of the nipple or anything. So I'm going to be a little more careful, a little more finesse, and not do it on camera. Let's go up a size. No, that's going to be too big, so I'm going to be stuck with this little rod that I have here. So I'm going to kind of be doing that, but before I do it too much, I'm going to go ahead and soak it, get some ink residue off, maybe even apply some heat around here to see if that'll help expand anything. So I will do that off camera, and then what I will go ahead and do is do my polishing off camera, and then come back and see if we can like re-put it together, show off a few features, and then do our writing sample. We'll try to keep this video short as well. So I hope to see you soon, and I hope to get through some of these pens fairly quickly. Alright, welcome back. We have everything cleaned up and I was able to do most things. I wasn't able to fully get off the clip in this jewel. I was trying to apply heat and twist it off, but I just couldn't do it, so I had to polish around it. So a bit of a tough adhesive there. I did wind up getting the pressure bar out, taking a look at it. I mean, it's got a little bit of pitting to it, but overall this looks like it's going to be a pretty serviceable J-bar. It's still got a lot of good tension here, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse that. And let me just go ahead and show the pieces off, and I'll show you the one kind of defect I found with this particular pen. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cap real quick. I'll zoom in. And so we've got the gold clip, and doing some quick research, some people called this some cowling, this kind of layered up kind of step design on this clip. So maybe that's a new term for me. I don't know if that's going to be consistent, but they called this a cowling. And we have this rather flat jewel. We have our cap band, and the colors really popped out. I was a little more aggressive on this pen. Let me show you the barrel just to kind of tell you what I meant. So the barrel came out really well. It's got this nice deep red and black, very luxurious kind of look to it. So if you recall, I remember feeling it, that there's some rippling, there's a little bit of distortion in the barrel. And so I was a little more aggressive with my polishing, and I actually started with some sandpaper, some kind of medium-ish grit. I think I did 220, then 400, then 800 sandpaper, just to see if I could get rid of any of the ripples, and it actually turned out really well. And so for that, I just kind of did some wet sanding, very slow, tight circles all around. All the more reason to make sure you cover up, whoa, there goes my stand, cover up the imprint a little bit to kind of protect it. But just being careful and methodical, I was able to do a little bit of shaping of this barrel, and so it came out really well. I'm really happy with it. So there we go. And of course we have this nice little step design on the bottom, which I think is milled in. And let's see if I can give you a little quick preview of the Wyvern image. We'll talk a little bit about that when I do the writing sample of the pen. But I was able to find that this is it says it right on there, a 404. That is the model of the pen. So brilliantly easy to figure out what this one was. It's nice because, you know, just like Conway Stewart's and stuff, you can see what the model is right on the pen itself, which is brilliant, I think. We have the hood shined up quite nicely. We have a couple like kind of divoted facets here on the bottom, kind of really reminiscent of the Fifth Avenue by Eversharp. So kind of interesting that that's translated along different models and different manufacturers. We have this very thin feed. Almost kind of feels like the old time kind of eye drop fillers where they would just have the thin feed right up the middle. They didn't have any of the combing on the side, so it was really just a quite simple feed. And let's go ahead and show the nib, and this is where I found a little bit of an issue, which hopefully it won't be an issue, but over time it could. So if I could try to zoom in, I don't know how much you'll be able to see it, but I saw it with the loop, and maybe you can see it in the way that it reflects. There's a bit of a ridge right in there. Just kind of imagine right in between. This is another Wyvern image. This is a stamped, same kind of griffin-like image that's, or dragon image that's on the barrel. It's also stamped here. So if you kind of see as I roll it, maybe there's an edge to that reflection right there, kind of right by my thumbnail, and that's a crack. It doesn't meet the breather hole. It kind of juts off just to the left of it, and it doesn't quite start down here. It's just kind of like within the bent section of this nib, there is a crack that goes right through the imprint. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it. I mean, it's not broken down here, it's not broken at the eye hole, so I mean, maybe as you write with it, some of the capillary action will bring ink up top, but I'm hoping that as you write with it, if it does happen to come out the crack, it's just going to come and flow down and kind of come back towards that breather hole and get back to the feed. So I'll give it a shot, just to kind of keep everything combined, but we'll see. And I also had the thought that if I ever had to replace this nib, like if it's just too juicy, if it just kind of runs and is not a good writer, I wonder if maybe I could pull a Parker 51 or a Parker 21 nib. Not sure about the dimensions, but you know, maybe that could be a replacement with this nice tubular nib. So just a thought. And so let's go ahead and get this thing back together fairly quickly. I've got my shellac and my talc ready, so I guess I should go ahead and do the nib placement first. And like I said before, I don't think I went into too much detail, but I did take my little dowels, put it down here, and I just kind of kept tamping it out, and the soaking really helped. I really didn't have to do any heat. So a nice sized dowel, but be careful that your pressure is going to be needs to be straight up and down. Try not to let it slip or put anything against the nipple here, because you'll break that off. So up and down. So be steady and sure about your placement and your method for that. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the nib over the feed. Kind of take it as high as I dare take it. There we go. Just kind of treating it like a Parker 51. I'm going to try to align the tip with where the nib seems to, or where the section seems to come to a point. Ooh, there we go. I'll push a little bit more. There we go. And that's pretty good. I probably should have taken a picture, and maybe I'll have to go back and see how it looked before, like how much nib to leave out, but I'm pretty happy with that. It seems to have covered the breather hole. I've got a good look at it. The feed's there. The feed's mostly up to the shoulders, so I think that's a pretty good one. So we shall see. And this is a size 14 sack. The nipple here is right. It's like a snug fit into my sack sizer. And being as snug as it was, I'm not going to take it down to a 13. Partly because, one, it's tight, and two, I mean, that's getting down to really small sack sizes, so kind of want to preserve some ink capacity in this. And I realize I'm missing one tool I'm going to have to use real quick, so let me pause and I'll come right back. Okay, I'm back and I have my tool. This is little alligator forceps, just because I'll need to put my pressure bar all the way back again. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. Oop, that was out, okay. We'll grip it there. And I'm going to just kind of line it up that way and get the pressure bar all the way to the back. And this pressure bar, I had to soak and do a little bit of gripping and twisting and pulling, so it was really tightly in there, because it does look like the barrel has a little bit of a taper, so it probably hugs that J-bar nicely at the very end. So I'm pushing it in, it's making resistance, and I'll take my little light just to see if I need to adjust the alignment of it. Take it down. I don't know, I'm not going to be able to see it, but take the lever. With my nails I can't get it. There we go. So yeah, right in the middle. Pushes it down. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think you could see that, but I did a good job. I'm going to go ahead and take my shellac. Put a little bit down here. And I barely had to clip anything off of this sack. This is almost the full size of the sack. So this is a nice long barrel. So hopefully if the J-bar is good enough, it'll give us a good capacity for this guy. So I'm just going to do my slip-on method. There we go. Squeeze it on up. Yeah, that's tight. Size 14 is going to work. Kind of rub that shellac into the groove. Use every little bit. Give the sack a turn. And there we go. Get that in there. Okay, but off the threads. Okay, that's pretty good. And now as we slip this in, I'm going to mention something that I thought about a little bit, and I kind of felt it when we were taking the pen apart. Let me do this real quick. And I'll talk about it as I do it. So because it's talked up, this is a screw-in section, I kind of felt the J-bar kind of catching that green sack as I pulled it out. So I'm going to really make sure that this is well talked, so that as I put this in and screw it, hopefully that helps it slide. Okay, good. It's not meeting any resistance. I don't think that J-bar is catching and twisting my sack. So that's the one thing I was kind of worried about. And let's see how well this is threaded. So if I get a good tight turn, it looks like the nib is just about lined up with the lever, which is what I like to do. I think a lot of people like that. It's almost there. So it's not perfect, but pretty darn close. So that's pretty decent machining, that anticipation. So we've got the nib kind of lined up in the middle of like the peaking of the section, which, you know, I think that's the way it's going to have to go. We draw the straight line back. It's pretty lined up with that lever. So that's actually well designed, well machined, just for aesthetic purposes. So hats off to you, Wyvern. I think that was a good touch. So there we go, and here's the pen all put together, and this is without any polish on it. This is just shined up so well. So let me go ahead and do some reading. There is a good bit of history on the Wyvern company, and I'll see if I can distill a little bit of it to you. But I'm going to go ahead and take a pause. I'll do my reading, and we'll come back eventually, hopefully the next day or so, and we'll do a writing sample and see how that nib performs. So I'll see you next time. Alright, welcome back. So we have the pen finally set, the sack is set, the pen is polished, and we can kind of give it a little bit of a twirl. And it turned out really well. I like it. The colors kind of deepened, and you get some nice kind of pearlescence to this nice red color. So I guess we can start with a bit of a showing of it off. And let's start up here with the cap jewel. I'll zoom in a little bit. So again, we have that kind of flat-ish cap jewel. Looks like a nice, just deep jet black one. We have this deco-ish kind of clip. The gold seems pretty intact on it, and again, I think I saw this as cowl, so I don't know if that's somebody's adjective for it or if that's actually a description that people apply, but however the case, it looks pretty classy. I like this one. And we have this nice like marbled pearlescence that just kind of shimmers a little bit in the light. And I'll say one thing, that Wyvern tended to be known for some of its kind of colored celluloid, so this is not surprising. We have the little slim cap ring, or the cap ring. It's a little bit loose. It doesn't quite slip off, but it does have a little bit of a wobble, and it will rotate, but it is, I guess, securely on the cap itself. And of course this one had no cracks in it, so that's very nice. And let's go ahead and see how that, call this a semi-hooded, because that sticks way out, so it's got a little bit more exposure than just like a Parker 51 hooded nib that would come maybe just a little bit beyond just exposing the tip. So we have this nice kind of black hood. Come along, we can see the feed. I actually kind of like this, like as opposed to the Parker 51 where you'd get that nice just kind of flat feed that kind of scooped out to the nib. This kind of continues this round design, so I actually kind of like the fact that it has a little bit of a roundness to it. So that's kind of nice. It kind of keeps that reflection going. So to me, that's a little bit of a plus aesthetically anyway. And like we said, this kind of screws into the barrel, so it's a threaded section into the barrel. And we have a lovely pearlescence. That color just continues straight on into the barrel, which I think this is lovely. We have just a rather plain looking little clip, and of course the J-bars are placed, and hopefully we'll see how it fills. And we'll see if we can find, there's the inscription or the imprint. So I'll show it a little bit. I'll kind of roll it around, but it might be worth just looking up the Wyvern dragon. You can kind of see it's got two wings. There's the dragon front, the belly, the legs are down there at the bottom. You've got the two wings, and it might be hard to see in this particular one, but there's a tail that kind of whips around, and it has kind of an arrowhead tail to it. That's kind of a thing that some of the models reflect in the clip here. They'll have it as kind of this little arrow clip, and I think that represents the tail of the Wyvern. And then of course it says 404, and I'm
thinking it says made in England or something England. It's kind of hard for me to see because I'm looking at the camera itself. So can I take a look at it? Yeah, made in England. So it's a rather attractive design. Kind of reminds me of like Maybe Todd with the swan, but this is nice detail. So take a look at that online if you could. And oh, there it is. There's the tail. It kind of whips up. Has a little kind of arrow tail. There we go. And of course we can come to the bottom. We can see this is kind of flattened, a little bit of stepped jewel. I assume, like I said, I think that's machined in, but that, or it's a well-adhered jewel, because that is pretty darn black. And that kind of compares to the top cap jewel here. So overall, fairly attractive pen. I mean, it's just a classic pen design. We have the hooded thing, so the contrast is kind of nice. I think you could see it either two ways. You know, it's like, oh, just a plain, boring hood that's just generically put on just to match the 51, but also kind of adds a little bit of contrast and, you know, gets the hooded look. So not terrible, and the more I sit and look at it, the more I kind of like it. So I'm not going to critique it too very much, but, and on the plus side, it's a pretty good size pen. It fits nicely into my hand. But let's go ahead and pull the paper. I've got my notes off to the side, and we're going to ink this guy up. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my platinum lavender black, just to kind of keep with the pen. And we'll see how this does. Since I did note the little crack in the nib, we'll see how the ink flow works out with this one. So let's go ahead and dip it. Make sure it's in there, and I think I got a little bubble. Okay, let's see how that goes. Let me just wipe it off. Dum dum dum. Okay. And here we go. Okay, and I did my best to kind of pre-tune this. I probably should have done it. I did a little bit before I put the nib in, but of course once it sits on the feed and slips in, it's going to move a little bit. But so I think I got it pretty close, but we're about to find out. Let's see. All right, it picks up. So we have a Wyvern. This is a model 404, and the things I found on the internet, it's actually, all I find are blurbs, like little paragraph-sized things that just kind of sum up the history of Wyvern really quickly. They don't really give it too much time, but apparently it's a pretty old company in England. It was about 1890s plus or minus. They started out in the fountain pen industry. They were making safeties and, let's see, eyedroppers, and they're pretty decent quality apparently. The thing that really set them apart apparently were their nibs. Their nibs were top notch. And I'm maybe jumping a little bit ahead by saying the nibs, but what they kind of did by the 1900s, 20s, 30s, getting into like the 1900s, they really became a factory or a company that just kind of put pens together. They would either fabricate different pen parts for different pen brands and kind of put some of their like lower tiered pens together, or just accept the parts from those companies and put them together. And that's how they got into that. They were making their own pens, and they got into their own little nibs, which apparently were pretty darn good. They typically would have, you know, firmer nibs or semi-flex nibs, but apparently when you got a nice flexible one, it was like Waterman quality. So people really liked the quality nibs of these things. They did okay. They finally went kaput in about 1955. And it sounds like from searching, most of their pen models that people kind of still have or are kicking around are probably from the 1930s, 40s to the demise of the 1950s. And some of the big models, it looks like, let me look at my thing, is the Perfect Pen. And I have seen that name floating around, and these had different model numbers. Oh, I see my things going in and out of focus, so I'll turn the paper in a bit. But like number 60, number 81, and they were just kind of numbered like that. And then these were pretty like school type pens, decently made, but like used for like everyday wear and tear school kids, right? And then you'd also get into things like the deluxe and what was the ambassador. So these sound probably some higher tier pens. And of course, apparently closer to the later part of their line, they played around with like coverings for these things. So lizard skin, what do we get? Lizards, I'll call it lizard snake. And they had some leather coverings in general. And some of these are kind of some of the more later and collectible ones that people are like, ooh, that's interesting. And of course, there are also a line like 303, the 404, 707, things like that. And I didn't really get to understand the nomenclature too well. But I do know that this one, the 404, definitely had the hooded nibs. And there's probably a lot of variation in between these. Probably some hoodedness, some different forms of the clip, of the lever, some forms of the clip, maybe with an imprint or not. So maybe that's what they were playing around with. And the only real critique about some of these kind of mid-century pens is they did suffer from kind of just some bad plating. Like apparently they were just kind of like a gold wash, or just barely using the thing would start to wipe off the gold. But this one in particular seems to be okay. Maybe it's, I can't say it's gold filled or not, but the plating at least seems to have maintained itself both on the lever and the clip. So this one actually looks pretty good. And so this 404, probably because it is copying the Parker 51, probably came out mid to late 40s, you know, since we know that the Parker 51 came out around 1941. So I think we can date this one to mid to late 40s. So let me turn that a little bit. So let me go ahead and flip the page. And just so far, I know I haven't commented on it yet, but this is actually pretty nice. And I think you can already see that the benefits of a semi-hooded nib gives you some flexibility. So let me just go ahead and do the sentence. Oops. Oh no. Did I spring it by doing that? Let me see. No, it's pretty tight. Maybe I just used up the ink. Let's see. Let's see what I can do. Just make a mess. See if you can prime it. There you go. Oh no, I may have sprung it. I'm going to take a pause and see if I can work this out a little bit. I may have pushed it a little bit too hard, too fast. Okay, we're back. I salvaged it. That was literally 5-10 seconds. I did kind of by pressing too hard. I opened the tines up a little bit too much, so I kind of had to squeeze them back together. So good to know about this pen. So let's go ahead and write the quick sentence. Oops, quick. Boom. Yeah, that's actually pretty darn smooth. I actually am very happy with that. I can take it both ways, up, down, left, right, and it does not feel scratchy. There's a bit of a squeakiness on this particular paper. I wonder if I could just do a little bit of micro mesh smoothing, but that's not bad. I actually kind of like the little pen on papers that this particular nib has, but it is not scratchy at all. It's very smooth. Let's see, I'm going to be careful here. Well, let me do the wetness first before I do my other stuff. Decently wet, a little bit juicy, kind of a nib, so good flow. And, all right, nervous now. No pressure. A little bit more. I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to push it any further than that. Yeah, so this does have some nice kind of flexibility to it. It's not even that much pressure, and it's actually opening up pretty well. So this is actually quite nice. Let me see if we can do a little bit of fast writing. Keeping up, keeping up. Nope. That might just be me. I'm running out of ink. Tines still look good. That might just be me running out of ink. I don't know, maybe. There's still some ink in there. We'll have to see this one. This one will have to be played out in a longer term. Because now, I'm writing like a champ. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Let's see if there's any reverse writing. Oh, that's actually smooth. Not digging at all. Yeah. That's actually really nice. It's picking back up. So I don't know if I had a little skip, bubble, what's going on, but whatever had me lose it here, I've definitely picked back up. But this is actually really nice. I'm actually really happy. I'm kind of sad that there's a crack in the nib, but this is definitely a serviceable pen. And if I have it beside me, we can throw it onto my ruler and see what we have dimension-wise. But it felt definitely pretty comfortable, so let's go ahead and cap it. And if I lay it down, we'll say about, from the top of the jewel, it is about 5 and 5, we'll call it 5 1/8 inches. And if we do it uncapped, nib to end is about 4 and just over 4 1/2, just over it. Not quite 4 5/8, but something close. And if I just kind of critique it on being held, and actually before we hold it, let's see if we can post it. Light pressure, and it posts securely. That's pretty good. And that does not lend too much weight to it. It's not very back heavy with the cap at all, but again, I don't think I need to. With this kind of 5 1/8, that's actually a pretty good, what did I say, 5 1/8 or 4, no, 4 1/2. That's actually pretty good right there. So, impressions on holding it, I guess it's going to be similar to a Parker 51. Like, I've got a lot of room up here to kind of play around, and just for the few minutes I'm holding it, I mean, I'm not sweaty, I'm not knuckling down on it, so as of right now, just a relaxed grip keeps me in this nice kind of smooth section. I'd have to come back quite a bit to kind of get onto the threads, and this is not a position I would want to be holding this pen in. It just doesn't feel natural to me. So I'd have a bit to get back onto the threads, and if I did, yeah, I mean, right now that's not bad. I don't think I'm going to mind it, even having a finger on the threads. Pretty comfortable. So I have a lot of wiggle room up here. Maybe if you get sweaty, maybe you're going to slide around, but as of now, I don't know that you would. But it's possible, you know. And what else? I think that's about it. I mean, I think it's a great size, comfortable holding position, big enough hood. Maybe you'll write on the threads, but I'm not hating it just yet. And as far as the diameter, this is not a pen I'm really crunching down on. I'm actually holding this pretty relaxed. Yeah. And overall, with this kind of semi-flex bouncy nib, if I ever learn how to use it, I'm actually kind of, it doesn't look like it's sprung. I wonder if there is a bit of a delivery issue. Oh, with that crack or not with that crack, I don't even know. But I get a little drop. See if you can see it. Kind of get a little. Yeah, I mean, when I do, well, there's the breather hole, so I guess I can't even say that. But when I get it and it's running, it is running well. So I have to play around with it. Anyway, don't want to belabor the point, but when it works well. This may just be a faulty nib just because of that crack, but as of now, I'm going to say, as a mimic of the 51 and a hooded nib, it gives me the look, but it has a little bit more playfulness than the Parker 51 would have. And I wonder if I had a good quality nib, something without that crack, wouldn't be having any of these issues. So I don't know. If I were 1940s and I wanted something alternative to the Parker 51 that looked good, this may be the thing, although it's not as cool because it has the lever. It's a little bit old-fashioned. It wasn't in like the vogue of different filling systems, but this would be okay, and I like it. You know, you maintain the kind of color palette of these colorful celluloids away from like the monochromatic, you know, plastics that they were getting into. So not bad. I am actually pleasantly surprised by this Wyvern, a company I've heard about, but I've never really had a pen. Boom. All right, so let me go ahead and cap that sucker. And let's see. I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to say this is a keeper. I like this one a lot, especially since the nib is kind of cracked. I'm not going to pass it on, but I like it. I've looked around on eBay, and there's a couple floating around. I was just trying to look up Wyvern pens, and there's a couple like here and there floating around, and they're actually going for a decent price. I guess it depends on the quality, but they're going for $100, $200. Maybe they're just going by the scarcity of it, but I don't know. I'm gonna definitely be on the lookout for some of these because I actually like this particular pen. So let me put that guy aside, and actually what I told you I would do is show you, let's go to the main writing page. There we go. I'll put this in front of you while I talk. So we're going to move on to the next hooded one. I've already got it semi taken apart, so I don't have it to flash onto the camera, but we're going to do the Soviet Union pen, the one from the USSR. It's the accordion filler, and that'll be the next one. I think you'll get a kick out of it because I like taking it apart and just kind of seeing it. So that will be the next one. But thank you for watching the Wyvern. Maybe you can pick one up. Let me know what you think about it. And we'll see you next time.